This is the cross-section of the eyeball. The eyeball has three main layers. Fibrous layer, which consists of sclera and cornea. Vascular layer, which consists of choroid, ciliary body, and the iris. And retina, which consists of pigmented and neural layers. So let's talk about these three layers of an eye. Fibrous layer consists of cornea, the refractory structure outside of the eye, and the sclera, or the white of an eye, which protects the eye, provides its shape. The extrinsic eye muscles are attached to the sclera. And then the next layer, deeper layer, is vascular layer. Vascular layer consists of three main parts. First part is the iris. It is shown here in blue. Iris is a muscle that regulates the amount of light that gets into the eye by dilating or constricting the pupil. Ciliary body, which you kind of can see right here, produces so-called aqueous humor that fills up the anterior anterior cavity of an eye, and it also controls the shape of lens, allowing us to change our focus from looking at something close to looking at something that is far. And finally, choroid, that red line here represents choroid. The function of choroid is to supply blood to the retina. The deepest layer of an eye is the retinal nervous layer, okay, which consists of photoreceptor cells and pigmented cells. And the function of this layer is to absorb the light and convert the light into the nerve signals, which then will be sent through the optic nerve to the brain. Eye can be divided into two portions, the anterior cavity and the vitreous chamber. Anterior cavity and vitreous chamber are separated by the structure called lens. We already mentioned the structure, figuring out that it allows us to focus our eyes on the close or far objects. Anterior cavity is filled with so-called aqueous humor that is produced by ciliary body. In some cases, aqueous humor in the anterior cavity, that is normally, it's constantly produced and it is constantly drained. When the drainage of the aqueous humor is impeded, this fluid starts to accumulate in the anterior cavity. Accumulation of fluid in the anterior cavity and increased so-called intraocular pressure leads to a condition known as glaucoma. The posterior aspect of an eye, the vitreous chamber, is filled with a gel-like material that is called vitreous humor. And what's interesting, vitreous humor is formed during the embryonic development and it does not change throughout the lifetime. The function of the vitreous humor is to maintain basically the shape of an eye. Now, your ability to look at something large but far away or small, close, is called a visual acuity, and visual acuity is regulated by lens. Okay, when lens change shape, we can change our focus from far objects to the closer objects, and that is called eye accommodation. When people age, accommodation becomes harder because with age, lens, which is a cellular structure, continues to add new cellular layers that makes lens thicker, makes lens stiffer. Accommodation becomes complicated. Main conditions associated with improper visual acuity or dysfunctional visual acuity are nearsightedness, farsightedness, and astigmatism. So this is a normal eye. You can see that lens focus the light on the retina. In the nearsighted eye, lens cannot focus light on the retina because nearsighted eye or myopic eye is too long. You can see that the focal point is in front of the retina. To correct for that abnormality, people who are myopic or nearsighted wear so-called concave lens. You can see how they are shaped. People who are farsighted, people who cannot see anything close, their eyes are too short. So this is uncorrected farsighted eye, and you can see that the image is focused behind the retina. To correct for farsightedness, doctors use convex lens, which move the focal point closer on the retina. Another name for farsighted eye is hyperopic. So we're going to call it myopia, and this is hyperopia. In case of astigmatism, uneven surface of cornea results in the uneven focus pattern of the light that hits retina. So you see some parts of the image are focused behind, some parts are focused in front, some parts are focused on the retina. That can be fixed by either special glasses or by the surgery. Now, how do we transduce the light into the nerve signals? So when light crosses the lens, it enters the vitreous chamber and eventually reaches the retina. Very specific part of the retina called fovea centralis. Fovea centralis is the part of the retina with the highest visual acuity. The secret for the highest visual acuity is that fovea centralis contains only one type of photoreceptor cells, so-called cones. Cones, shown here, are the cells responsible for sharp and color vision in the bright light. Cones can detect 3 different colors: red, blue, and green. Combinations of those 3 basic colors give us all the spectrum that we as humans normally see. Again, cones are responsible for sharp color vision in the bright light. What if it's the night and it's dark? Then another type of cells called rods will function in these conditions they will be responsible for the vision in the dim light and for the peripheral vision. This is why they're not that good. This is why rods can provide only, grainy images, vague images, and as you move from fovea to the periphery of the retina, the number of cones decreases while number of rods increases. So again, fovea is the place with the highest visual acuity of the retina because it has only cones. So when light interacts with the, say, cones on the fovea, okay, that initiates the chemical response through the special chemical called rhodopsin. This chemical rhodopsin is different between rods and all three types of the cones. It's also called a visual pigment. Stimulation of rhodopsin initiates nervous signal that is transmitted from the rods to bipolar cells. And bipolar cells essentially transmit the signal to ganglion cells. And ganglion cells extend their axons to the visual cortex of the retina. What is really interesting about that visual cortex story and the image on the retina is that when we are looking at something, the image that actually falls projected on the retina is flipped upside down and left to right. So our visual cortex can actually correct that, flipping the image back, correct sides, flipping it vertically and flipping horizontally so we don't see the world around upside down and in the mirror reflection. Okay, so some of the impulses from one eye cross through the structure that is called optic chiasma. So images that are detected by, say, left eye will be projected both to the right and left hemisphere. The same is true for the right eye. The images will be projected into both hemispheres as well. One important step over for the image on the way to the occipital lobe, where visual cortices are located, is thalamus. Thalamus relays the necessary visual information not only to the visual cortices, but to other parts of the brain, such as cerebellum.